as prominent members of the Asian American community, we were asked to talk about what Andrew Yang has said during the quarantine times. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know at all?
No, no.
So,
I'm not very Asian American.
during this time, as my pants were around my ankles and I was doing what quarantinos do,
Which is what?
jacking off, I said to myself, this is something we need to spring up into action and address, especially because a lot of our fan base was saying, you guys need to say something about this. So because we couldn't get together and do no JK News while my pants was around my ankles, I said to myself, I'm gonna do my patriotic duty to fucking respond to this shit and give my piece. And I saw you went at it too.
I don't even remember what I said anymore.
Well, we both commented, right?
Yeah.
And I think you reached out specifically.
Sorry, do most of your great ideas come when your pants are down?
In many ways, yeah.
Did you finish?
I had to stop.
It was that important.
It was that important.
Wow. Edged for this.
I edged.
Did you do it with your free hand or did you double hand this task?
I had a double hand.
I had to completely
I had to take my hand off my dick.
That means it was a big issue.
I was scrolling on Instagram and feeling myself, and I came across this, and I saw many people said, "You need to say something, Joe." Okay, so here's what it is. So a lot of people in the Asian American community, celebrities, public figures, they were all outraged at what Andrew Yang has said.
Even fellow YouTubers, Asian American comedians, a lot of people.
People we know, man. So Andrew Yang did this Washington Post op-ed, right? And in that, he said a few things that rubbed people the wrong way, when I was rubbing myself the right way.
I like that one. So if you, these are the last two paragraphs that I think angered the most people. But it starts off with him talking about how he was shopping, and so he's like kind of relating because I think someone, like a teenage boy, yelled "chink" out of the window. So like through this whole Corona thing, Asians have been experiencing a lot more racism. So this is what his opinion piece is about, and then this is towards the end of his actual thing on the Washington Post, which you can look up. During World War II, Japanese Americans volunteered for military duty at the highest possible levels to demonstrate that they were Americans. Now, many in the Asian American community are stepping up, trying to demonstrate that we can be part of the solution. Some 17% of US doctors are Asian and rushing to the front lines. We Asian Americans need to embrace and show our Americanness in ways we never have before. We need to step up, help our neighbors, donate gear, vote, wear red, white, and blue, volunteer, fund aid organizations, and do everything in our power to accelerate the end of this crisis. We should show without a shadow of a doubt that we are Americans who will do our part for our country in this time of need. Demonstrate that we are part of the solution. We are not the virus, but can be part of the cure.
That sounds great.
It does, but also but also, man, why do we gotta prove ourselves?
That's the main point.
People feel the same way.
So the
Why
big
do we gotta
thing.
show that we are American even though we are? You know what I mean? Like, why people don't have to come out and say, guess what, guys, we're American, so we're gonna show it to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he glossed by the beating part like really fast too. But then the big thing that he brought up was that he brought up Japanese Americans signed up to be in the military to show that they were American. But it's not like they did it in a positive way where it was like, yeah, fuck yeah, America. It was because they felt like they had to in that moment.
I'll tell you a little insider secret about the Japanese Americans because I have personal family that told me what went down. That's not written in the history books, right? So when I was arguing in the comments during this time with my pants back up, on my up now, because I was serious, right? At this point, I was like, I gotta say something about this, because what maybe Andrew doesn't know, because he learned this in school, right? What maybe he doesn't know that what really went down is, so my aunt, basically what happened was the Japanese American population had to whitewash themselves in order to have longevity in this country. They all got together and they said, what's happening? Like, how come, we have some World War I vets, we have people that dedicated their lives to this country. Why did they round us up and put us into the camps? Maybe they saw us as a foreign threat because we're not speaking English enough. Maybe because we're not going into these communities and being a part of the community. We're sticking to ourselves too much, right? So a lot of them actually destroyed their own culture out of survival. And so that's not something like, hey, let me be more American. That's more like, I don't want people to round me up and take all my possessions. So maybe what we have to do is send our children to work as, you know, doctors and military guys and politicians. So they're so ingrained into the society that there's no way they can do that to our people anymore. And so if you notice, there's a lot of Japanese Americans that don't even know how to speak Japanese. But Chinese Americans that have been here for generations, they still continue the culture, and then they might learn and pass it down, and they can celebrate a lot of Chinese culture. But a lot of Japanese Americans are whitewashed, and they forgot a lot about that stuff because they purposely didn't teach them the Japanese and all that stuff. So they basically genocided their own culture in order for long-term survival. So it's not something that was done out of like, let's embrace America. It was done out of survival of like, I gotta throw away this and I gotta wear red, white, and blue and have fucking American birthday cakes and flags all over the place in order to be accepted. So it's not such a good look. I know that Andrew was probably using that example as like, hey, in a crisis, if they see us as a foreign threat, we got to get ahead of that by showing even more that I am on your side, right? But I think it's a different time now because of what Asian Americans did back in the day. I think that is what makes us today, we can say whatever the fuck we want without rocks being thrown at us or whatever. We can tell them straight up like, no, I'm an American too. Yeah. And I don't have to pretend and fucking brown nose, and I don't have to prove myself because I have just as many of the same rights you do. But back then they had to do that.
Yeah, the part of me, I guess, that felt sad when I first read it, it's kind of aside from the actual op-ed. It was just, cause I didn't even read the op-ed first. What I first saw was pretty much seeing like the entire Asian American community turn their backs on someone they backed as a presidential candidate overnight.
Do you feel like they turn their backs completely, or they are still okay with pointing out the flaws in someone?
Well, I don't. Well, so it's hard to say. It's hard to know, right? Because everyone's tweeting, Instagramming. So it's like a sentence here, a comment there. But the way that they're saying, it's like if someone's beloved to me, right? If they say something, I've seen people, even when Kanye was saying like slavery's in the mind, or he says some crazy shit. There's people that are coming out, like let's say a big boy from Power 106 at the time, he goes, let me help explain what he's talking about. Or other people come, let me help explain what he's talking about.
So there's no benefit of the doubt, right? So like,
yeah, it's just people just straight up just comment, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And they're just straight up just roasting his ass without offering a solution, without even trying to, it didn't seem like any of our fellow Asian people were trying to see what he was trying to get at. And so for me, I think he could have worded it way better. But because I am Asian American and I've been in the military, I kind of understand the merits of what he's talking about. So like, he's also, and you also have to keep in mind his background, right? He's an entrepreneur. So entrepreneurs coming from startups, they're very solution-based, very pragmatic. So for him, he's like, okay, cool. This worked in the past, this is what we need to do. So he's taking emotions out of it. He's taking these stories out of it, these cultural, emotional context things out of it. He's just seeing, flatten the curve here, flatten the curve here. What's another thing, just like precedent, what has precedence, what's gonna be a good solution? So that's me understanding his entrepreneurial mind. Yeah. So he's, instead of like coming forth and like hyping all the Asians up and giving a great Obama style speech that really has no substance, he doesn't want to just rile people but make people feel good. He's like, these are some actions that you can do.
And it's too cold because what people wanted at this time,
they just want to feel good first.
Well, they wanted him to condemn the racism.
Yeah.
Not to say we have to be the bigger person, because I'm pragmatic too. So I speak his language. I see the goal. I'm just like, yeah, imagine how bad the racists will look when all of us Asian Americans are donating and doing more than these guys in their supposed own country, right? Yeah. So we're doing more, we're volunteering more, we're giving all these things to help better the cause. And so the racist guys are looking worse. So it's more like a strategic thing of better PR for the people or whatever. But I think what people are saying here and doing here is they're more like, oh man, it feels like you didn't really back us up and you just told us to kind of suck it up. But I agree with you, man. I think what's happening here.
But he might have jumped the gun at that point. Maybe he was supposed to agree with everyone, hype people up, get people to feel good, and then here offer solutions. But I think because he's just so quick to jump to like, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
People didn't follow him along his thought.
But here, the problem, I guess, is that I get what he's doing. He's like, let's turn this negative into a positive.
Yep.
Right? But the problem with that is that, like, we have to dig to find that message, right? So it's the same thing with Kanye or same thing with Trump. It's like the main argument for them all the time is it's not what he's saying, it's what he meant. But then that's always ignoring what he's saying. You know what I mean? Because I think also in the article before that part, he was bringing up the Japanese soldiers and how they were awarded all these medals, right? That the troop that was like saving lives.
The 442nd,
but then also ignores the other part of the history where it was a segregated, group, and then they also lost way more lives than they saved because they were sent into the most dangerous situation possible.
They got fucked.
Around that, it's still surrounded by so much racism, but to only pinpoint that like positive thing that they got a lot of medals ignores a lot of racism, and that's what a lot of people are, have a problem with.
The part that I'm actually have a problem with isn't even this. It's just like our community. Like if we ever do want to make a voice, the last thing we need to do is have 10 other chiefs pop up that are all giving problems, and no one is going, okay, this guy is the chief for the moment. Let's everyone help find the benefit of the doubt for this person so we can at least stick together.
I think the response was harsh, and you weren't giving the benefit of the doubt for someone that you backed up so hard.
Yeah.
Because any one of you guys or someone that I supported, if they said something, right, the first thing that's coming to mind is I'm gonna say, did you really mean it that way? I would ask him. I would tweet at him and say, hey, Andrew Yang, were you really ashamed about being Asian? And can you like elaborate on that? Because I'm taking it maybe the wrong way. But what happened was people immediately felt as though he was completely telling us to whitewash.
Yeah.
He was turning his back on the Asian community, and I thought it was a bit extreme to respond that way. Like, for example, Simu, he copied and pasted a part of it, and he says, hey, that's a no for me, dog. At a time where Asian diaspora from around the world are experiencing massive racism and discrimination, basically just told it to suck it up, eat a cheeseburger, and buy an American flag. Our community unequivocally rejects this piece. So to me, of course, I see it as Simu's hurt, right? But also, like, his response was so, it was in a way where it was like, pretty much you're not trying to understand what Andrew's saying, but you're just completely writing it off.
Yeah, because he's not going, hey guys, when he's talking about red, white, and blue, he means it like a metaphor. It's like there's straight up comedians just latching onto certain words, like, oh my God, you want me to buy a red, white, and blue t-shirt? And then like, in a time like this, so they're like taking things and then they're just like, I'm like, man, this kind of, like, it sucks to see my own community eat each other up. And I'm like, man, that was the part that I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, because I'm a very macro kind of guy. I suck with micro things. Like, I'm not a very detail-oriented person. So hearing it in a very macro angle, all I heard was, hey, the whole world's hurting. We gotta come together. If we're gonna beat this virus thing and like just, come out on the other end as happy society, we gotta like put aside our differences and we gotta just knuckle down and do the work that we're all supposed to do, regardless of race or whatever, And the fact that he threw in the Asian stuff in there is like, hey, this is for us though, And I don't know. For me, it's like I hear there's two ways to look at it. There's the Malcolm X and there's the Martin Luther King, way of going about things, And I think his way was very Martin Luther King. Turn the other cheek and let's like you can't fight fire with fire, man. You got to put it out and you got to, it's love all around, hugs.
Yeah, and there's one of the other arguments that I read was, we've already been here. We've already had to fight this stuff, and how come it's happening? Like, we shouldn't have to re-earn our Americanship, right? Yeah. Which I completely understand.
I agree.
But for me, I'm like, but there's also, that's philosophical, that's theoretical, and but there's also reality. So reality is, Black people have been fighting this shit way longer.
That's exactly what I was
when
thinking.
When you go to like in the military, right? When we all go up to do swim qualification, when the black person steps in front of the pool, everyone looks.
If he could swim.
Is this motherfucker gonna drown? And this is like a stereotype that has been broken a million times, but racism is real, or prejudice is real, whether it's good-hearted or bad-hearted or whatever, it's just real, right?
And so how do you battle that effectively rather than just saying, I wish it never just existed?
Yeah, so to battle effectively, this motherfucker is probably gonna swim his fucking ass off like David Goggins and turn into a Navy SEAL to show everyone I'm fucking drown-proof, motherfucker.
And then other people are like, why do I have to swim and work that hard to prove that other people, and then it's like, I think it just goes both ways, man. But so recently, Andrew Yang came back on Next Shark and then he was able to kind of comment on what he said earlier, right? So there is a part that I felt was kind of weird, which is it made me ashamed to be Asian for the first time, or that feeling, right? Even though it was very vulnerable to say it, I think that as a leader, even saying that you were ashamed hurts a lot of people.
Yeah, it does.
Because people were upset of my use of the word ashamed, and I think a better word could have been powerless or marginalized. And so he had some time to think about it. And so he says maybe he didn't use the right words. Man, I think he has a lot of awesome ideas, and when he gets a time, I guess when he has time to reflect and clarify what he really meant, I never once thought he was telling us, you gotta be more white.
Yeah.
My first reaction definitely was like, I get what he's saying.
Yeah.
But then my second reaction was just, but you didn't do it right. But I get it, but you didn't do it right.
Yeah, I didn't get the feeling that he was trying to tell me to be like more white in that sense.
No.
It was just more of like, oh, yeah, I definitely see the bigger picture, and I don't know, for me, I feel like I'm a pretty easygoing person, and like, I feel like I don't really have that many strong opinions, so whatever I would say, just like, take it as it is, because it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, I wasn't really offended by it, but I understood what he was going at, but I also understand the other side, where it's like, we just want to know that like you're pretty much on our side, and that like why do we have to continue fighting something like that we've already been here, we've established ourselves
and
here.
For him, what he was coming out and saying is that his brand of Americanness may not be the same as yours, right, or mine, or whatever, but he says that's the point of America, right? So he's calling for Asians to lean into their patriotism and make it your own. So it's very different from saying let's all conform. And so when people took it as like, let's whitewash, he was kind of shocked about that, because a lot of people did take it that way, right? And
that's why when I read him say like, wear red, white, and blue, I pictured it as you do it you wear red, white, and blue in your own way.
Yeah, red, white, and blue is not a white people thing.
Well, fucking go to Old Navy and buy those colors.
He mentioned Japanese Americans and the way they did it.
Yeah.
So the problem's that he said that immediately before that, so when he brings that up again, it's like, okay, that's not the reason why Japanese Americans did it.
Yeah.
So if you're referring to that, that's not it. But if you're referring it to the context of like, yeah, let's be American, let's, pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, then that's great, right? So it's,
I don't know.
yeah, it is weird, because it wasn't like Japanese Americans were sitting there like, we gotta be more American, let's fucking die in the war. But they were doing it out of like survival.
It
Yeah.
also goes back to the whole benefit of the doubt thing, where I'm like, hey, everyone, be more like Nadeem here. He lost 50 pounds. And then people are going, but did you know it's because Nadeem was suicidal? That's why he lost 50 pounds. So like they have to dig into this extra negative context instead of trying to understand where he possibly could be going from.
that could be bad though if he was suicidal and you're like, be like Nadeem, he was suicidal.
Moment. Yeah.
I don't know, I mean, when I first heard his statement, I was just thinking like, oh, that's a very like Asian solution, because it's like you kind of take the passive road to just like show up people, like you don't.
Yeah, it's too zen, right?
It's non-confrontational.
Yeah.
But it's like passive enough where it's like, okay, I'm still gonna get my point across, because like, even though I may be the victim, I'm gonna show you that like I'm not trying to be the victim.
And that's what I love about our culture, but I think what's happening right now is a lot of people in our community are sick and tired of let's take the higher ground, and they want our leaders to say, fuck y'all, stop that shit.
Right.
So that's what I think is the sentiment around this, is that a lot of people are like, why can't we just be more outspoken and confrontational? And I don't really agree. I think it's all about being effective. So you can say don't do this and that, but I'm more around the Andrew Yang camp, you know? And then, because to me, it's like I don't stoop down to the level of stupidity and argue with them or have to tell them, because stupid is gonna be stupid. I'm gonna waste my time doing that. I'd rather use my time and skills to do something that's super effective.
But I mean, like, I get it though. Like, as someone who is a leader, his words weigh a lot.
That's another thing, though.
His words weigh
is
a
the
lot.
leadership.
Like it matters.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
Because his words are just so you got to be carefully. Or you got to be careful with that. Whereas us, we even see the fuckery too, where we fuck up and we bullet point some words and. Yeah.
If he just said to help people, that's one thing. But I think it's also like he's like, hey, let's prove to them that we're good people. And it's like
Yes.
people are like, what do I have to prove?
That's the fucked up part is we shouldn't, and we should never have to.
We don't have to, yeah.
Yeah, anything. But yeah, that's a good talk, guys. And yeah, thanks for everyone that's been bugging us to whoever interrupt me in the middle of my jerk session. Thank you very much.